The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
There it is. Welcome to our town council meeting. Today is Monday, April 9th, 2019, 7 p.m. This is a special meeting of the town council. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask Councilwoman Moranti to please lead us.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we do not have any presentations this evening, but we do have a public hearing, and at this point, I will ask our town clerk to read the notice for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Notice is hereby given that the Plainville Town Council will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 8th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the Municipal Center, 1 Central Square, for the purpose of hearing public comment on the Town Council's fiscal year 2020 proposed budget. Copies of the proposed budget are available at the town clerk's office during regular business hours. Dated at Plainville, Connecticut, this 4th day of April.
Thank you very much. Before we actually take comment from the public, I'm going to ask Town Manager Lee to go over a summary of the recommended budget that we're going to be having public hearing on. So, Mr. Lee, if you'd like to take over.
Sure, this will be very brief. There are copies of the Town Council's recommended budget up here on the front here. If anybody wants a copy of it, raise your hand and Scott will hand them out to you, or Cal as well. So, the Town Council's recommended budget totals $61,880,822. It's a 3.04% increase from the current year's budget. I did put an asterisk that says if not for the debt increase of $334,000, the overall percentage increase would be 2.48%. And the reason why I bring that up is that the council has, with their debt management plan, is utilizing debt management funds of $334,233 this year to offset the debt increase. So I think that's significant to point out that the plan is to keep the debt service line item at a $4.4 million steady line item. And that's been like that for several years, and the plan is to keep that at that level going forward. The anticipated mill rate based upon the latest budget figures, including state revenue figures, would be 0.88 mills or 2.61% increase in taxes. The next slide is just briefly the difference between the town manager's recommended budget that was presented in early March and the town council's recommended budget after their budget workshops. The town government budget is scheduled. It was going up slightly. That's somewhat misleading in that the town council decided to put the teacher's retirement contribution that's proposed by the governor onto the general government side. So they actually reduced the general government budget by somewhere in the area of 90. Let me do the math here. It's $90-something thousand, and then we added the 107 back in. So there's a slight increase to the difference, but all of that difference is because of the TRB monies that's proposed, the Teachers Retirement Board monies payments. Board of Education budget was reduced from the town manager's proposed budget by $221,000, and capital projects was reduced by $149,000. Total reduction of about a reduction of $357,282. So the anticipated mill increase went from 1.23 mills or 3.65% to 0.88 mills or 2.61%. So that's just a quick summary of what the council accomplished during their March workshops. So.
Okay, thanks very much. Put that in. With that information, I will open the public hearing up to anybody that wishes to speak. Please come to that podium, state your name and address. I do have somebody that signed up, Karen Makrowski. Did I say that correctly? Did you wish to speak on the public hearing for the budget?
Yes.
Okay, Karen, then.
If that sheet was for that or not. So.
Yep, okay. You're up first then. Thank you.
Hi, Karen Makarowski, 2 Sunrise Terrace. I just wanted to bring up a few things. First, I appreciate the budget being available earlier this year than it has been previous, so that was a nice surprise, as well as the display of the budget was very easy to read and to go through, and I just found it much easier than previous years. I just wanted to bring up a few things. I've been here for 12 years now as a resident. I've come to, I think, maybe 10 of these budget hearings in the past, and I sound like a broken record because I keep bringing up the same points. I wanted to address our lack of services for the disabled. We provide Meals for Wheels, Dollar Ride, Senior Center, all for seniors over the age of, I think it's 60 at the moment. We haven't been taking care of our disabled residents. There's quite a few of them in town, but they're not receiving the services that they need. And we should find some time to sit down and consider how can we reallocate some of our dollars, how can we put more in human services, and maybe open our senior center for a day, a week for this disabled, maybe give them a bit of the Meals on Wheels or Dollar Ride, dollars, and try to even fundraise that if we have to. It's just kind of sad that we don't take care of our disabled residents like some of the other towns do. I'm concerned about the money that we are budgeting for the revenue from the state. So this is a new governor, new legislature. We don't know really what's going to come down the pike. We know that Ned Lamont proposed certain dollars for the towns in his proposed budget in February. We know the session may or may not end in June. It may go all the way to October. And we have to plan our budget ahead of time. I understand that. We have to plan with an estimate. But I've asked in the past about what about contingency budgeting? So I'm the CFO, and I know that a large revenue source or a large expense is unknown. We set aside expenses that we won't spend until we know what the revenues are. And I'm sure that there are expenses within our budget of the town that we can do without should the revenues come in from the state at a certain percentage lower. So I've asked this in the past, and the response has been, well, we don't expect there to be a large difference. And so when we got less funds from the state, we raised our taxes, and that's how we balanced our budget. So we need to think about budgeting in a different way and break it down. It's a $62 million budget for the town. There's got to be a way for us to think about contingency expenses, think about our disabled, think about how to provide those services. Another thing that happened this year that I was kind of surprised about is that we received some pink bags in the mail that said, recycle your clothing, bring them to the corner where your trash is, and this company will come and pick it up. So we asked a for-profit company to come into our town to take our recycled clothing, to be able to sell the fabric or sell the clothing, make money for themselves. Instead of thinking about our Plainville food pantry, who also provides clothing to our residents that are in need, or the Goodwill that we just invited into our town that relies on our donations so that we can recycle them back to those that are in need in our own town. So we got to start thinking about how do we provide and support human services within our town. And while it was a great idea to be able to make it easy to put your clothing at the curbside, it's not a great idea to let a for-profit make a benefit from our own residents. Also, and I appreciate the slide because it's a little bit different than what I saw online, but I see less than a 1% change that happened between the time the town manager presented the budget to the town council and it came back. I understand we have some very difficult expenses to deal with, and your job is not easy as fiduciaries of this town to be able to take a look at that. But I know as a CFO, when I go to my board with my budget, it's got a little bit of areas of which I can tighten up if they say to me, we need to save 5% and we need to save 2%. Not so easy on a $62 million budget where we have contracts and everything, but I did expect to see a little bit more than less than a 1% decrease in overall costs. And just make sure I don't have anything else to say before. And the capital improvements, I'm a bit concerned also when I look at the budget that we have $22.7 million in capital projects coming over the next 6 years. And while the budget was great because it told us exactly what we were replacing and why we needed to replace it and that it was at the end of its life, or some of the trucks were even past their life. And that was a great presentation. I know it's hard to project out 6 years, but we're projecting $22.7 million, and that's 1/3 of our current year budget. We're going to be in trouble as residents trying to figure out how we're going to pay for the capital improvement and for the debt services. So it's probably time to try to create a subcommittee or try to get some involvement and to work that through. We're not experts by any means. You guys are the experts when it comes to capital improvements, but I'm just asking that we take some consideration and do some forecasting over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council regarding the public hearing? Yes, John?
John Kislick, 65 Forestville Avenue. I have copies of Kislick's budget. I'd like to have the council, each one, if you're interested, you could have a copy. And there'll be one for the town manager because he likes to be used by me. I'll wait till you get my budget. I'll start off first with the Board of Education, well, first of all, you afford us this opportunity to speak on this budget that you presented. And I'm not trying to minimize your time or effort you put into it. But as a taxpaying citizen, been in Plainville since 1956, I'm glad that we have such a great government that I could come up here and I can talk to my feelings on your budget that you presented. And it's nothing against you or anybody else. It's just as my opinion as a taxpayer. First of all, with the Board of Education, everybody knows it's across the state, there's a problem with education. And when I looked at some of their line items, I was shaking my head so bad I got dizzy. It's just unbelievable, some of the things that are in there. And I know you cannot tell them where to cut. But in my opinion, there's no way that this town council could look at their budget and not come up with more of a cut. So what I'm doing, just a token little cut of $30,000 off that budget. And if you figure it out, 30,000 cut on 38,299,000 budget. I didn't know my calculator can calculate so low with so many zeros. It's 0.0007826%. There's no way you can't find 30,000 in there. I bet if they went over the figures, they'd find the mathematical mistakes that would give you 30,000. So that's just my opinion on that. And my whole thing is I was trying to bring this budget increase under $1 million. And so these are the figures I'm going to use. I have 30,000 there. Next we'll go to debt service. And one of the things like this young lady just talked about, you have plans for the future. And one of the things in her, again, is the Board of Education. From what I read, they want to plan the middle school 3 years out, which I think might be one of the reasons why you increased the interest payment 45% on our, I don't have that on there, but on our debt service. Interest was up 45%. Now, my way of thinking, there's no way that school's going to fall apart in 3 years. If you push that plan out at minimum of 5 years, in that time, you're going to pay between principal and interest over $23 million on what we've borrowed. I don't know if we're going to do anything in between, but you'll have paid off $23 million between principal and interest. So with that, I knocked off $90,000, and that's just this year. I know Mr. Lee just gave some different figures than what I had originally seen in the budget presentation I have, but I knocked off $90,000 off of that, and that'll bring the increase. Now, these are only increases that I'm taking money from, nothing that was always before, so you're still going to have an increase of $244,233 in that account. So there's another $90,000. Then I went to police pension increase. You have $41,000. I took $10,000 off. Now, I know these actuaries come up with all kinds of predictions, and they're supposed to be experts, and I'm not an expert. My expertise in this is I'm a trade school graduate. I have a certificate in my trade, high school diploma, and 71 years of life experience. Now, these experts, I kind of relate them to our Federal Reserve experts who decided that it was right for the country and the people to start raising the interest rates. Saw how that worked. Stopped people from getting houses, buying cars. It affected me personally. I had a loan out for a renovation project, and the interest rate kept going up and up on money I borrowed the year before. Well, these actuaries are the same way. I think they're gun shy for all the problems that we've had with pensions. So I think they're overestimating. Because one thing with police, and this is nothing against the police, I'm not touching their overtime, the pension you are paying, I'm just talking about the increase. I think they tend to retire as soon as they can. So they're not going to be getting more years amounts in their pension. And then there's so many variables in how they take out their pension. If they're married, if they're single, what type of pension they take. And like I said, a lot of them leave, they take other jobs, they go into security. So it was just my gut feeling that I think the actuaries are a little wrong. And I'm only taking off 10,000. Just 10 off of a 41,000 increase. You're still paying a huge amount of them pensions, and I have not heard anything that any of the town pensions have a problem or are underfunded, not like education. So move on to the next one, capital. You have, in the budget presentations that I saw, you've been allowing $800,000. And what it said, as of now, you're at 600,000, and you're projecting 280,000, 82,000 more, which would put you over by 82,000. And this year, you approved 800,000 again. So I don't know if that projection is right. This is the only one that I'm doing that I think is close. But I think if you work with the spending and cut it back, I took 10,000 off of that. And then we always know when your last month of the fiscal year how you do changes, and I think we'd have plenty of money in there. I mean, that's my opinion. I'll go to the fund balance. Everybody knows that fund balance is the taxpayers' money. It's every one of us here. That's our money, some one way or another. That's our taxpayers' money. The last presentation we had $8,098,402 in there. Now, in your budget, this is where I may have a little bit of a mistake. In your budget, it said you were going to use $300,000. Is your figure of the budget, the $61,880,000, did you already take $300,000 from the fund balance? Do you know if you did? You didn't? To make your $1,800,000 increase, did you take $300,000 from our undesignated fund balance? No.
The undesignated fund balance on the revenue side, it's not on the expense side.
Okay. Then maybe I'm right. Out of that $8,098,000, if that's still the figure, I'm asking that we take $690,000 out of that. If we did that, I come up with a total reduction of $830,000 off of your $1,000,008, which would give a new budget number of $61,050,822, up $994,764, or 1.65%. Now, if we took that $690,000 off of fund balance, it would leave $7,408,402, or 12.13%. Now, I think that's a pretty safe fund balance, over 12%. You would only be at 13, got it here somewhere. Should wear my glasses. You're only a little over 13% with your budget at $1,000,008. So what I want to ask this council, you afford us this opportunity to talk to you. I wish that you would reconsider, even if you take a fraction of what I'm talking about from some of these, I think you can still reduce this budget and give us a little bit of a better increase, because it's still going to be an increase, a better increase. Right now with this $1.8 million, that's a budget that I couldn't support myself. And I know you're at an advantage in this town because we're going to get 5% of the people come out because the other 95% think it doesn't count, it doesn't matter. But it does, because if they come out and vote it down, then you know you should reduce it again. And then again, if that's the way they vote. And you know, you may pass something like this, but you're going to have a lot of unhappy people, and I wish you'd just take some more time and knock it down a little bit. I think the 3% increases. Well, Robert said something different. I'm not an accountant, and I guess I'm glad I'm not, because those figures drive me nuts. And Robert's an expert, and so is Robert in our finance department. But I think your increase is still too much. In fact, I can't even figure out what the mill rate would be, because you say a mill is 1,300,000-something. I don't know if that changes with all these figures. So I just want to ask this council, take another look at it, see if you can help us a little more. Thank you.
John, before you go, Kathy, do you mind?
Right ahead.
Two things. I didn't want you to sit down because I want you to be able to respond or ask further questions if necessary. First off, on the debt service, those are not, the debt service is based upon what we have to pay next year. It's not based upon saving up for the future years. The reason why the interest rate went up is because we borrowed for the Wheeler School project, and that's impacting us next year. That's the reason for the increase in the interest.
Okay.
Number two is when you use fund balance to offset the budget, it doesn't reduce the expenditures because it goes on the revenue side of the budget. So it wouldn't bring the expenditures down to 998, whatever. It wouldn't bring it below $1 million.
Right.
It would be 998,000 plus the 690 that you're talking about, or whatever. The 690 that you're talking about, it would still be an increase. It would still be an expenditure increase of $1.69 million. Okay, it would be reflected on the revenue side, so it would reduce the mill rate, but it wouldn't reduce expenditures.
Okay.
Just so you understand it.
I'll understand. I don't understand a lot of that, so that's why I'm not up here yelling and hollering and screaming, you have to reduce it. I'm giving my opinion. You guys are the expert. But I still think there's room to drop this somewhere with some of the things.
I just wanted you to understand that it would reduce the mill rate, but it wouldn't reduce the expenditures.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, the reduced mill rate would make me happy.
Well,
All right.
what do we do the following year then, John? Do we what do we do the following year? Do we keep taking out of fund balance to keep
No.
supporting the continue? Because some of this you've offered is actually reduction in spending. Some of these are reduced spending items, but the bulk of what you're proposing is to take money out of fund balance. So that really doesn't, as Robert said, that doesn't reduce the expenditures. It just pays for what we're going to spend in a different manner.
Right.
So next year, we're going to still be in the same position.
No, well, we don't know if next year is going to be different. We don't know what our expenses are going to be. Maybe the Board of Ed will come down to earth and we'll have a little less money to spend there. Who knows? But you have to think now, Kathy. Things change too fast. We don't know what the state's going to do, like this other lady said. You have no idea. But I'm thinking about now and this year, and that's why I said you're still, with that fund, the debt service, we're still at $4.7 million a year, right? And I was looking at 1 year, or you said it reduced down to 4.4.
Yeah, we've been netting it to 4.4 million. So anything that goes above 4.4 million, we would use the debt management fund, and so that would bring it down to 4.4.
Okay. Well, you understand what I'm trying to do, I hope.
I do.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council on the public hearing regarding the budget? Anybody else? Lou, welcome back. Step up.
Lou Frangos, 10 Fairbanks Street. Before I start droning on and on, I see on the chart capital projects. Is that the same as, could it be called capital improvements?
Yes.
That's one and the same? Okay, there's a reason I'm asking that. Now, this goes back to the 10th of January of this year, 2019.
Well, Lou, before you get started, sorry. That's the contribution from the general fund to capital improvements. The actual amount that we're going to spend for capital improvements is significantly higher than that because we're getting a state grant for a portion of it, and for example, Town Line Road is going to be completely offset with a grant from the state. So while the capital budget itself shows a significantly higher number, the amount being funded through taxes, local taxes,
Okay.
the general fund is $800,000. So
All right.
if you go to an article back in January, you'll see a significantly higher number if that's where you were going.
Well, this is what it has, and you're probably going to have to repeat that for me because here's where I'm a little confused. I'm looking at capital projects on the chart that has been wiped clean. Now, again, this goes to the 10th of January of this year. And this is the town manager, Mr. Lee. Lee said the town council will need to figure out how to balance the cost of the projects sought by the municipal and education officials. But he doesn't think Plainville can continue to underfund its capital improvement budget and defer some of the projects and maintenance for much longer. What's confusing me is I'm reading something here that this is desperate, things have to get done, and then I'm looking at that chart and it says zero.
Well, it's a zero increase. It's not at zero. I mean, it's still contributing $800,000 towards capital improvement.
Okay. And that's going to be this
A
sounds,
zero increase.
this sounds more like desperation. And when I hear desperation, I expect to see increase instead of decrease. Maybe you don't need that much money. I don't know.
Well,
Because I know we
that
do
was that was my opinion, and the
Depends
council,
who you
the
ask,
council makes
though.
decisions.
That's so. In other words, we're under control for improvements this upcoming year.
Right. What we have budgeted for capital projects for next year is $800,000.
Okay.
800,000.
Just shooting from the hip before I leave the stand. Nothing. Has anything been mentioned this year about was the middle school? Is it they're going to fix the boilers? Is that all included in this funding for maintenance? Because that's a chunk of change, isn't it? Or did I misunderstand something here?
Yeah, the middle school has been addressed. So, as far as boilers are concerned, that was part of the energy improvements that was done several years ago.
So
The council actually appropriated additional monies back late last year, before
That's what I
December.
wanted
The
more than
council
two.
appropriated additional money from fund balance to help take care of the problem with the boilers at the middle
Yeah,
school. So
excuse me.
they're done.
No, okay, I thought that was just one boiler and they had to progress further.
No.
That was just to solve the problem at the time.
Correct. Yep. It took care of the issues that were there.
So we are under control for maintenance of the upcoming year. Those are the only question I had for you folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Roberta?
Roberta Loria, 18 Perrin Road. Thank you for your time this evening. I would just like to get some clarification on the information we were kindly given. I did look online as well. Under page B3, you talked about general government. One question I have on this is, are these figures, for instance, the treasurer, attorney, finance, assessment manager, town manager, are these salaries or are these expenses for each department? I'm a little bit confused because if you go farther down on page B5, you see town government personnel. So I'd just kind of like to get some clarification if you don't mind.
I'm going to have Robert answer because I
Okay.
don't seem to have the same lineup of
Okay, I'm sorry.
documents that you're looking at, Roberta.
Okay,
so
I'm
perhaps
sorry.
you can help.
We broke down the budget several different ways.
Okay.
The first question that you asked is for the department, so it's for the whole department.
Okay.
Then it was broken down. The second part of it was broken down by the various categories like personnel and other services. So we broke it down two different ways.
Okay.
So that's total personnel on the second one, and the first one includes anything that goes associated with that department.
Oh, so that's all expenses related to that department?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That helps a lot. I do also have a question regarding line 133 under that same category, and that has to do with elections. Does that include any of the referendums we have? What does that include when it's part of? Because that figure seems kind of high for.
It does include the all-day vote, and it does include the whether there's the vote in November, and includes monies for potential primaries.
Okay.
Well, so.
But it does include any referendums we may have, like when
We're not planning any referendum. We don't anticipate any referendums next year for the next fiscal year. But it could.
Okay, because it's not going down by much, and I know we had the referendum this year regarding the fire trucks and things like that. So that's why I was wondering.
Right. We're not planning any referendums next year. If there is a vote on potential road bond, that would. My plan is to include that in the November. When they try to time it for the November, election day.
Okay, so then why is there such a difference in cost? It's not very much. I mean, I know we had the referendums this year. What does that cost to have the referendums? The fact that it went down, 0.12%. You're talking what, $79? I mean, how come it's almost identical this year compared to last year when there were referendums?
Well, there was one, and sometimes it's difficult. I mean, we budget for a certain number of elections and primaries and votes on the budget. It's just a guesstimate of what it might be. So we don't say, well, we know we're gonna have this next year, or we know we're not gonna have it. So it's really just it's pretty much the same amount each year, the number.
Okay.
By and large.
Okay. Thank you.
Because you might have a referendum one year, but not have a primary.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Okay. Thank you. Now regarding line 210, which is the public safety fire, does that include all mileage and maintenance to their department? Much like we were talking about above?
Yes, it does, doesn't it? The fire, that's a total of what the department spends?
Yes.
We anticipate them to spend.
Okay.
Yes.
And those are guesstimates, because we
Those are
don't,
guesstimates as well.
especially the repair of vehicles. That's very difficult to predict. But based upon past years and those types of things, the fire department budget has been over the last several years has been coming in under budget.
Right.
We actually budgeted. So.
Okay, thank you. Now, for line 323, you talk about the transfer station. Now, I was under the impression, I could be wrong, but absolutely, isn't that supposed to be closing? Or how's that working?
It's the landfill that is scheduled to close at some point in time. There's no definite timetable. The transfer station is different than the landfill.
Okay.
The transfer station is located at the landfill, but we're not closing the transfer station.
Okay, thank you for straightening me on that. For the insurance under town government, does that include all insurance, including things like stop loss, and when we may have they have to pay insurance for the festivals and things like that? Is that part of that line, or is that part of the recreation line on 510?
Let me just double check this. That's our risk insurance. That's not that insurance. There is our property casualty risk insurance. That's what that particular department is.
Okay, thank you.
Employee benefits is where the health insurance is located.
And that includes the stop loss?
We don't have stop loss anymore. When we were self-insured, we had stop loss. Now that we're fully insured through the state plan, we don't.
That was dropped?
Yes, we don't have stop loss anymore.
All right, and what about things like the festivals and any other things that require us to obtain insurance? How does that work? Is that anywhere on here?
The Balloon Fest, the town of Plainville contributes half of the insurance for the Balloon Fest. The fire company comes up with the rest of it. That's in their insurance.
Okay.
That is in the insurance line item that you first mentioned.
Okay, thank you. And one question I have, and I know we have some members here from the Board of Education, and that had to do with the textbooks. I know that we are working very hard to convert to Chromebooks each year, and each year we go to a lower and lower grade. So that I understand that number will go up, including everything associated with that. But what is involved in regarding things like the textbooks and workbooks? I understand library books, but for textbooks, I was under the impression that the goal is to get away from that. So what is that?
Getting away from that, but they haven't, they still need, they're still going towards using the other books as well, but we do need some regular books in the schools for the kids. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've converted primarily to Chromebooks for much of the curriculum. However,
Right.
there are still many courses that use the old-fashioned books. When those become outdated or don't have online resources,
Mm-hmm.
look at different resources that do have online resources. Because we do have, as you said, Chromebooks.
Right, right.
The expansion of Chromebooks has been finished now, so all the grades that are going to have Chromebooks have them. Now it's just a replacement cycle.
Right.
Because they last
They only last 3 to 4 years, right? I understand. Because it's easier to replace them than try to maintain them. So I totally get that. Okay. All right. So, but you still think? I mean, that seems like a high figure, at almost 34,000. Is that a little higher than what you anticipate, or are you honestly anticipating spending, 33.8 for textbooks for the year?
Yeah, there are subjects that require textbooks. For example, the advanced placement courses where the students earn college credit.
Okay.
You have to use specific books for all those courses.
Is that reimbursed? Because from what I understand, those advanced placements, AP classes, aren't they paid for partially by the parents?
There's a fee to the students about
Okay.
140, 125.
Okay, so then it doesn't cover the cost of everything.
No.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Thank you so much for your patience.
You're welcome. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council regarding the budget? I'm going to let everybody else speak if you don't mind, and then we can circle back. Mr. Edmond?
Greetings. Joel Edmond, 63 Hollyberry Lane. In this state of troubled times, I think that maybe regionalization efforts to consolidate taxpayers' expenses might be a good thing to explore due to local costs for education. Is not only excessive but over the top. I realize that state mandates, security issues, etc., raise the workload, but why do we need a principal and 2 assistant principals to navigate over the student population when at the high school it could be condensed maybe into a much lower cost by regionalization efforts. It seems like $15,000 per student a year is an abhorrent price to pay to educate only a dwindling amount of students. Every year it's always $1 or $2 million or more dollars to bankroll the education process, and the efforts and cost don't seem to accomplish much better results. When the Board of Ed tries to explain the reasons for the inflated costs, it's always over the last 10 years. How about going back 40 years? You would find that it is not just 2% increase per year. Plainville is a small town, really a sleeper town. household income small compared to our surrounding towns, and many people don't have double incomes to push that household income over $70,000, which they could seem to say is the average. And they use figures to suggest that we need to pony up more money for maybe a lot of fluff that is unnecessary. For instance, changing all the auditorium seats at Plainville Middle School just because a few were not quite up to present standards or broken. I have to admit that I have been docile and quiet way too long, and that is why I am up here expressing myself. Much like my father 70 years ago when he was third selectman for 2 terms and first selectman for 1 term. That's when there was not that much of a difference in income that people made, and things were more affordable and reasonable. Boy, have times changed. Wake up, people, express yourself and not allow yourself to be scammed of your savings. And don't forget to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Nicole?
Nicole Palmieri, 20 Julie Road. I'm the vice chair of the Board of Ed, and I just want to speak in support of this budget. I think everyone should support it. It's a lean budget. I would ask the council not to cut anything else after tonight from the Board of Ed. Any more cuts would be catastrophic to us, and we do not want to have to lay off any teachers or staff. So I would ask everyone to vote yes on the day of the vote, which I forget what day it is, April 30th. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council regarding the public hearing? Yes, sir. You're next, Joanne.
David Spencer, 127 Milford Street Extension. I haven't really reviewed the budget in detail. I'm not quite sure how capable of analyzing it I am. There are better minds than mine to go over the dollars and cents. But I'd like to kind of maybe talk about a little bit of it philosophically. I know you people don't like to hear the word God much in this chamber, but there is a scripture talking about a time prophetically where men will be saying, looking at the world and their environment and just saying that everything is going to keep on continuing the way we've always known it to continue. It's a warning. I mean, I take Bible prophecy seriously. I don't know how many other people do. The proof will be in the pudding eventually, one way or the other. Anyway, I get this feeling that we're acting like everything is just going to keep on continuing. And I'm looking at Hartford, which is, I mean, after the last 2 huge tax increases from our former governor, and then they turn out to be total failures. Our new governor is doing the exact same thing. How that's going to trickle down and affect us, I think we have to be very concerned and look closely at where we can reduce. I think the tendency is to kind of just nibble around the edges, and I mean, I don't really want people laid off too, but I've been laid off in the real world. I've been laid off a number of times in my life. I never liked it, but it happened to me. And the reasons were mostly that money and business were lean, and my employers just couldn't or didn't need or couldn't afford the staff that they had. I mean, there are teachers at the high school who don't think you need 3 principals at the high school. And I mean, that's my point. I mean, I'm seeing the red numbers on your screen there, and that's a nice first step. I'm glad you people, considered that maybe the budget was a little high. Maybe we need to give the taxpayers a little bit of a break. But I mean, it's still an increase. And there is a point, I mean, there's a proverb about the straw breaking the camel's back, and there are a lot of people living in South Carolina and North Carolina whose backs have been broken by taxes in this state. And the biggest tax is usually the property tax that's pushing them out. So, I mean, I commend you that's a nice first step, but it's only a first step, and it really has to be, you really have to consider the taxpayer. We're not a bottomless pit of money, and the more taxpayers' backs you break, the more they're going to be leaving the state, and you'll be receiving nothing. And the more our property values will go down, and it'll just hurt us in general. So I don't know what you can do. I don't know, but I mean, personally, I'm going to be voting against the budget, and I'm going to be encouraging other people to, because I know, even though I haven't looked at it, I don't know how to analyze a lot of things in it. I just intuitively know that there are many places where costs could be reduced. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, do you still wish to speak?
Yes, ma'am. It's been a long day. Joanne Edmond, 166 West Main Street. I used to squawk, and I love that word, squawk, when it was $1 million up in the budget. Budget up $1 million. Now I'm really squawking that it's almost $2 million. Yeah, you did knock down, I asked you to whittle some off, and you did. Whittle. And it still isn't enough, as far as I'm concerned. And there's one thing that kind of puzzles me. Oh, it's right here on this sheet. I got my glasses, my reading glasses, but I know where it is. Tutors. The subject is tutors. Tutors. Up, or the line item is 1,110,000 plus little few whatever dollars cents, and I just wonder, I won't swear, what in blazes is going on? How come that's so high? See, I can catch myself. I don't have to come up here and say a bad word. So
thanks for that, Joanne. Thanks for that.
Oh, great. But I know them all. It's fun sometimes. And anyway, can somebody here tonight tell me why we need a big expenditure like over $1 million for tutors? In my day, I don't even know if we knew what tutors was, or what it meant. We all struggled through it. I mean, we learned. We had wonderful teachers, I'll tell you that. We had great teachers. We didn't even have par whatever. assistant teachers. We had one superintendent, one principal for all the schools. And we all learned. And we really had a great history teacher. But now, can somebody here tell me, explain the tutor situation? How many do we have? Why is that figure so high? Can somebody explain it?
I believe that line item, I hope I get this right, represents 30 or is it 40?
30. I'm going to
45. Tutors for children.
30.
Okay. 45.
What's the dirty little secret here? God, there must be a dirty little secret of why we need so many tutors. Why? Why do we need some? I mean, don't we have, I understand that the teachers are teaching. They're good teachers. What's wrong with this scenario? Why is it so high? Steve, come on up here and explain it. Okay? They're never going to hear you down there.
Joanne.
They're never going to hear.
Can you just
They're never
stop?
going to hear him down
Right.
there.
Well, you're public. This is for you to make comment to the council. It's a public hearing. We're not going to have an interview
all right.
or a debate.
Maybe he'll come
I
up
think
here after
you've
me
made-
and explain
you know,
it.
If
I
he-
don't
if
know.
he would like to talk about that.
But
that
we
would-
need it.
so you can finish up.
Is it a secret, Kathy? Is it a secret?
No, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not a secret.
Well, why is it so high? I mean, do I have to say what? Is this because we've got a lot of illegals here? We got what?
Joanne, I think what I can say to you is that the Board of Education creates programs to enable students to achieve the goals that the board wants them to achieve. And the tutors are there to help assist all the children who need extra help reach their goals.
Does this extend over into special ed or what? Why are there
You know what?
30?
That's something we could find out about.
We
I know
really
that
need to know. I think
Well,
the public needs to know because
okay.
it's a heck of a big expenditure.
Again, the tutors are to help the students achieve the goals that the Board of Education has set out at each grade level. If there's special education needs, there are folks that help those students along. If there's children that are trying to master certain concepts, they also get extra help with tutors. So it is a different world, Joanne, than when you and I went to school.
Oh, wait a
believe
minute.
me.
Now, why do the taxpayers have to assume this cost?
It's part
Aren't
of
their
the-
parents? I mean, the parents seem to be getting out of making food for their kids. A lot of them. Now we have to pay so they can learn. I mean, beyond the $15,000 per child per year. This is a lot of money. What?
There are no extra tutors in the budget other than what is needed to meet the needs of the kids by law, by federal and state law. We hire what we need to meet the needs and do a great job of educating our students.
Well, you're never going to hear him way back here. I know that. I'm sorry, Steve. You're not going to.
When you're done, I'm going to ask Mr. LePage.
I think it needs to be
help us
answered.
with
Maybe the
this.
take take this one over.
Okay, Joanne, if
This
you're
is
done,
really,
are you done?
Really, a
you done?
very serious expenditure.
Okay.
A lot of money.
Acknowledged.
A lot of money.
Acknowledged.
Kathy, just one point. With respect to the council determines the bottom line figure for the Board of Education. The town council, in theory, could reduce the Board of Education's budget, but that doesn't mean that that the Board of Education is necessarily going to reduce any specific line item that the council or anybody in the public may take issue with. So the council is responsible for the bottom line budget for the Board of Education, not the individual line items. And I'm sure that the Board of Education, who are all residents of the community as well, taxpayers of the community as well, go through the Board of Education budget and determine, what they feel is the proper amounts of money for each of the line items that are in there. And I know that they struggle to come up with a budget that they feel is responsible. It's about as transparent as you can get, and I'm sure if you attend the Board of Education budget or Board of Education meeting, they would be glad to share the information with you.
Thank you. If I may just make another comment regarding the Board of Education. They did have several work sessions as they went through to develop the budget. They were public meetings. Anybody could be there. You couldn't participate, but you could listen for some of the explanations of some of these items. I did attend as many as I could. I did not see a lot of parents there or other people from the public. However, this is a choice that people make. I do want to also reiterate that you're seeing the reduction that the town council has made to the Board of Education budget. There was also a reduction to the Board of Education budget by the Board of Education, and it was over $100,000, it's 112 or 20, it was something in that range. So the Board of Education, with their initial look at the budget that was presented by the superintendent, already had reduced their budget before we got it. So I just want to be clear about the fact that there has been work done. The Board of Education did a lot of work on their budget, and the town council also reviewed a lot of items. We asked a number of questions, and that's how we ended up where we are. So the board did do some work on it. Does anybody else wish to speak? I think you're done for now.
Yeah, but I still didn't get an answer.
Okay, well,
I didn't get an answer.
we're gonna continue on and let others speak.
We're supposed to be here tonight.
Okay.
This is why you have a hearing, so we.
It's to hear from the public, Joanne. It's to hear from you. It's not to have an inquisition back and forth, okay?
I am the public, part of the.
I agree. Yes, you are. An important one at that. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so? Anybody else wish to speak to the council that has not done so?
Not explaining.
Okay, before I close the public hearing, I know that you had one more comment to make. Karen, would you like to step up and do that?
Guys, I have two quick things. First, I want to reiterate that I support the Board of Education budget. I think that the strategic plan that's been put forward, the mission, the goals, the objectives, they're all well measured, well documented, and I think the budget's sound. I just ask that when I commented about our budget decreases, that possibly we look at the town side a little bit closer between the experts that work on the town. The second thing is I wanted to ask a clarifying question. There's a bill in place in front of the legislature right now, HB 7408, that calls for towns to be able to assess the nonprofits or tax-exempt property owners in their town fees. And those fees are in lieu of taxes that they would pay. And some of them are pretty substantial of what they estimate the cost to be. So first I want to know is any projected revenue from that bill in our current budget? No. And if that bill was approved and we were able to tax nonprofits, which by the way I am completely against, but if we were, would the revenue decrease the mill rate or decrease the revenue expected from residents? So would there be a savings passed on if we were going to execute that? Okay, thank you very much.
That would be a council decision, but I don't anticipate that they would increase expenditures because they received more revenue as a result of being able to tax nonprofits. I mean, I'm just, based upon my knowledge of the town council, I would think that we'd add it to the revenue side and pass that on.
Okay, thank you. If there are no others that wish to speak to the public hearing, I will close it right now. Thank you for your comments. We'll move on to the other items on our agenda. My papers are all mixed up, so give me a minute to get back to where I need to be. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting we need to have approved.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes of March 18, 2019 special meeting, March 18, 2019 regular meeting, March 21st, 2019 budget special meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Announcements and reports. Does anybody have any announcements to make tonight? Nothing? Okay, well, I will make my report. I was delighted to attend the presentation at the Plainville Historic Society, which was the story of Plainville women in government and politics and public policy from the 1800s to the present. That was on March 23rd. I need to thank Rosemary Moranti, our councilwoman, for doing an absolutely outstanding job with her research, with her presentation. It was a fascinating look at women in politics in Connecticut, and she did a great job of focusing on Plainville and some women who have been politically involved for a great many years. It was fabulous. Rosemary, you did an amazing job of research, and I want to thank you for doing that. I wish there were more there. I don't know if we can get your presentation out to a bigger audience, but I think it's certainly fascinating and something everybody should see. You're welcome. You did a great job.
Do it at the library next time.
Are there any other reports? Okay. On to appointments and resignations.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to appoint Stacy Shaw of 126 New Britain Avenue, apartment L2, as a regular member of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 2?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to appoint Joshua Bakzik, 11 Hanson Place, as a probationary firefighter to the Plainville Fire Department.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 3?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to appoint James Lanois Jr., 19 East Maple Street, to the Conservation Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do we have any other appointments or reappointments this evening that we didn't have on our agenda? Okay, thank you. We'll carry on. Item number 8, report of the town manager. Mr. Lee?
Thank you. I have a couple of items. First is the annual town audit, RFQ. Town staff will shortly be issuing a request for qualifications for the fiscal year 19 town audit. The return date will be early May, and is it anticipated that the recommendation will be made to the town council at the first meeting in May. Second item I have is the fiber project, CROG Surtex agreement. Town staff has been working with Surtex Utility Services for the installation of fiber to the town facilities, including several town and school buildings, police radio repeaters, the wastewater treatment plant, and 4 pump stations. In 2014, CROG conducted a request for proposals for network infrastructure services for the purpose of establishing a contract through competitive negotiations for the fiber optic and network cabling services. Surtex was chosen to provide these services for the CROG towns. I will point out, in conversations I had with Lyle Ray, who's the executive director of CROG, that when those requests for proposals were received, there was actually a state bid that was out for the same services, and that their bid ended up being 40% lower than what the state bid was at that particular period of time. So I don't know, what went on there, but apparently, the process that they went through was significantly less than what the state bid price was for the same services. CROG would remain as the administrator of any agreements on behalf of its members. A fee schedule was established for the services provided by Surtex. Under new business is a motion that would authorize the town manager to execute a side letter agreement to participate in the master services agreement between CROG and Surtex. The estimated cost of the Surtex services is $453,378. You may recall that the total project cost was somewhere around $711,000. There are some other additional costs that would not go to Surtex, but would go to other entities to complete this project. But that's the issues with regards to the fiber project for this evening. The other item I have is the Valley Water Public Information Session, which is scheduled for May 14th, 2019. A public information session to discuss Valley Water's hardness removal evaluation study will be held on Tuesday, May 14th, 2019 at the middle school beginning at 7 p.m. The study was performed by Ty and Bond and was issued last May. Plainville residents are invited to attend the public information session to hear representatives from Ty and Bond review the results of the study, including their estimated costs for softening the water on a system-wide basis. Valley Water representatives will also review the results of their customer survey that was held last fall. Representatives from the State Department of Health, the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and the Plainville-Southington Health District will also be in attendance to explain their roles and responsibilities in the operation of public water systems operated by private companies such as Valley Water. Residents are invited to attend the public information session. There will be opportunities to ask questions and to provide public comments. The Ty and Bond study can also be found at this point in time on the Valley Water Systems webpage. And if you'd like, there is a link to the full study that can also be found on the Town of Plainville's website at www.plainvillect.com. So there's a link to the Valley Water study on the town website as well. I hope people who have concerns about the hardness of the water and the water system itself will attend this public information session. We'll have all of the experts there to answer questions and to explain the study and to talk about the costs and the survey that was done of the customers as well. Next item I have is a community seminar, which I've entitled Tenant Eviction Rights. Plainville apartment renters and other interested community members are invited to attend a public forum addressing tenants' rights, which will be held on Thursday, April 18th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Plainville Senior Center. This event is co-sponsored by the Town Manager's Office and the Senior Center. Attorney David Pelz from Statewide Legal Services of Connecticut, Inc., and Paul Zagorski of Zagorski, and Galski will explain the eviction process, fair and equitable rent increases, and what rights may or may not belong to a tenant. Both lawyers have extensive legal experience in this area, coming from both the tenants and property owners' perspectives. There will be a question and answer session that will follow the presentation, and light refreshments will be served. The Plainville Senior Center is located at 200 East Street. Questions about the forum can be directed to my office at 860-793-0221, extension 201, or via email at my email address, which is relee@plainville-ct.gov. Persons in need of free transportation to or from the event can call the Senior Center at 860-747-5728 to make arrangements. Hopefully, this is being done as sort of like a public service for renters who may or may not know what their rights are, and we'll give them the opportunity to talk to some attorneys who are experts in this area and to learn what their rights are in these types of situations, whether you have a lease or not, or going month by month. Next item I have is the Community Video Showcase Program. Town staff is working with CGI Communications to produce a series of videos promoting Plainville. These videos will be placed on the town website, available to people seeking information about our town. Kyle Hauberger is here this evening to give a brief presentation regarding the CGI program, and he will also be our staff person in charge of the project. And so I'd like to ask Kyle to step forward and give his presentation.
All right, so thank you for having me tonight. My name is Cal Hauberger. I'm the interim economic development coordinator here in town. I was asked to come tonight to speak for a few minutes about a great partnership that Plainville has entered into with CGI Communications. As Robert said, CGI will create 6 videos at no charge to the town that promote town assets, and hopes to both retain and also recruit new visitors, families, and businesses. Now, a huge benefit of working with CGI on this project is that they will handle the entire production side of the project. So everything from drafting scripts to creating storyboards, then filming and editing will be done completely by CGI. Reboot it? All right. Meanwhile, the town will have the ability to review each step within the project and does hold final approval throughout the entire project. So if we can get it going here, CGI has worked with a number of communities both across America and Connecticut, and one that is close to us is the city of Berlin. Yeah, whichever you want.
Madam Chair, can we do a 5-minute recess if necessary?
Motion to recess. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Yeah. Getting a little cold. Huh? The ear one. Yeah, I just let him.
It's weird. We have a computer on up here, but we're just showing it blank.
I'm cold.
I'm just gonna restart it right now.
How are you? Are you comfy?
I'm just fine.
Okay.
Have you tried dragging it over to the other screen?
Yeah.
It's like a multi-display setup right now.
Is it a multi-display setup?
I believe so. Here, let's do window. No, that's not it. What's that? Window P. Duplicate it.
Good conversation piece.
PP Joe, they call it. Hold it.
Nope. The Windows button, and then the P, and it brings up the project settings. So I mean, we could extend it, and then we could just drag this.
I think duplicating would be perfect. Though.
Would you like to? Yeah.
Duplicating. That way he's able to see it.
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
I'll do duplicate.
That's pretty easy.
There you go, guys.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you very much. Sound.
There's sound on the video. And the sound's up here.
A little bit. All of a sudden, what the heck's going on?
On the side here. Yeah. We good?
Excellent.
Shall we resume?
Yep, that's fine. Yep.
Okay, we're going to resume with our presentation here with Cal.
Would like to point out that thanks to the camera person for helping us solve that.
All right.
That
Very
dilemma.
good. Multitasking.
Yes.
Very nice. Thanks. Okay, Cal.
All right, so like I was saying, CGI has worked with a number of communities both across America as well as Connecticut in this community showcase video program. And so I just want to showcase the town of Berlin's videos just to give the council and the public an idea of what the final product will look like.
Hello, and welcome to Berlin, Connecticut. As mayor, it is my privilege to take you on a tour of this beautiful New England town. Hello, and welcome to Berlin, Connecticut. As mayor,
The video's not coming through. It's not on here either.
Tour of this beautiful New England town. See why over 20,000 residents are proud to call Berlin home. Located at the geographic center of Connecticut, Berlin is within easy reach of New York and Boston by both highway and rail. Incorporated in 1785, Berlin has a long history that is well preserved. From the historic district of Worthington Ridge to the 2,000 acres of town-owned open space, which includes quaint parks and many hiking trails. Berlin is the perfect mix of small-town charm and modern amenities. It is with open arms that we welcome you to Berlin.
Whether you're just starting out or looking to continue your education, Berlin offers enriching curriculum.
All right, well, this is not an indictment against CGI. We're just having a little bit of issues here tonight. It was a great voiceover. What you did miss was very nice panoramic shots. CGI does now use drone technology to get beautiful panoramic landscape views as well. And they really do produce some high quality videos. And they're able to do this at no cost to the municipalities, which is a huge benefit to us. And they're able to do that by subsidizing production costs by selling advertising spots around the videos to local businesses here in town. And so if we go back to the welcome video, you will see these advertisement spots right around the video window. And what these allow is for viewers who come and click and view the videos and learn more about the towns to also click on these links, which bring you to the website for local businesses. And so it's a great way to promote what the town has to offer and the many benefits it can have both to citizens within the town and citizens of the surrounding area. Now, again, the video isn't showing up here, but you would see that when clicking on here. So Plainville has decided to sign on with CGI. They have a great reputation. They've been great so far in our early work, and we're really looking forward to working with them. According to them, this process is going to take about 12 weeks to complete, which would put us someplace around mid-July. And at that time, hopefully, we will have a finished video product that we will be able to bring to the town council and to the public and show you, and hopefully promote the great things that Plainville has to offer.
We actually participated with CGI about 5 or 6 years ago, did a similar video production, and at that time you may recall that they were selling banners. You know, they provided us with free banners, and they had some advertising space underneath. Now they've now graduated, or turned it into something that's more online, and I think more certainly productive, and for those who choose to perhaps link up with our with the CGI production as well. So that's it for the CGI part of it. I was going to have Scott go through some of the happenings and then answer questions that you may have for us.
Okay. Thanks, Cal. Thank you.
Good evening. Moving on to the Senior Center for Happenings, they're offering a healthy eating for weight loss class on Thursday, April 11th at 1 p.m. And the focus will be on healthy eating to prevent heart disease and some of the other heart conditions that are out there. On Monday, April 16th, they'll be having the Betty Bocas celebration at 3 p.m. The Senior Center will host a celebration to honor the spirit of volunteerism characterized by the late Betty Bocas, longtime Plainville resident, advocate, and public servant. Refreshments will be served, and all Plainville residents are welcome. Call the Senior Center to sign up. And also a reminder that Betty Bocas month of service runs through until April 15th. And for more information for that can be found on the town website. And on Friday, May 3rd at 9:30 a.m., they're having a volunteer driver recruitment breakfast. Senior Transportation Services, Inc., STS, as they're also known, provides rides to medical appointment for seniors and is planning to expand its services in Plainville. They need drivers from Plainville to make it a success. STS is different from Dial-A-Ride as it provides rides to medical appointments as far away as 25 miles from Plainville. This includes Hartford, Glastonbury, Rocky Hill, Bloomfield, West Hartford, Simsbury, Avon, Meriden, Berlin, and more. Rides can also start as early as 6 a.m. STS will not replace our Dial-A-Ride system, but will greatly enhance it. Volunteer drivers will use their own vehicles to drive clients to out-of-town medical appointments and to visit loved ones at healthcare facilities. And volunteer drivers receive reimbursement for mileage and supplemental automobile and liability insurance. Volunteer drivers must agree to provide a minimum of 2 rides per month, and riders must be able to walk on their own. If you want to learn more and maybe become a volunteer, please come to the Breakfast for Senior Transportation Services on Friday, May 3rd at 9:30 a.m., or please call the Senior Center to register or sign up. Moving on to the Historic Center, on Tuesday, April 16th at 7 p.m., they're having a mystery night at the museum. This is your chance to be a history detective right here in Plainville. Join others at the Plainville Historic Center for an interactive program identifying photographs and artifacts from days gone by. a great way to get into the spirit of the celebrating of the town's 150th anniversary. And moving on to Public Works, the transfer station is open for the season. The hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. Plainville residents must show identification, and there is a fee for disposal, which can be found on the town's website. And the 2019 spring bulk collection has begun, beginning today, and the spring collection runs until June 24th. And this takes place on Mondays, and there is no collection on April 22nd or May 27th. Residents who currently have curbside rubbish and recycling can request to have one bulk pickup per calendar year, free of charge, for large items that do not fit normal rubbish collection. Eligible residents must call CWPM at 860-793-6721 to schedule a pickup. When calling, they just ask that you provide your name, address, phone number, and a complete description of the items to be collected. And as long as the call is placed by 3 p.m. on Friday, it can be scheduled for a collection on Monday. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Robert, for your report as well.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any questions for the reports that Robert or Scott provided to us tonight? Comments?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Put this on. Just a couple questions in terms of the CGI project for Robert and or Cal. CGI, would they be the ones that would actually solicit for the businesses for the ads? I know there was a mock-up of the letter in our packet. That would go from CGI to the businesses?
Yes, they would bring the letter with them just to show that it was officially, something being sponsored by the town.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But they would do the solicitation.
Mm-hmm. And the other sort of follow-up question to that is, the towns like Berlin that have done this in Connecticut, have they been successful? I know that I did see a few of the ads up there,
Yeah.
but have they been successful in getting that? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
And they were successful in Plainville when they did it, 7 or 8 years ago as well, when they were just selling it. Space on the bottom of the banners.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the town manager? Okay. Thank you for your report, both
You're
of you,
welcome.
all of you. All right. Moving on, we're in the public comment section of our meeting during this time. We welcome the public to the podium to speak to the council. You'll have 3 minutes. You must provide your name and address. Does anybody wish to speak to the council? No? Oh, gee. John? John?
Oh, diving out of this.
Want me to go first?
Go ahead. John's first.
Oh, okay.
John Kislick, 65 Forestville Avenue. You probably heard enough from me tonight already, huh? Anyway, did all of you get my question about the April Fool's Day meeting? I sent an email to you to ask if the cancellation of the meeting was an April Fool's joke. Well, I guess it was real. Anyway, what I talked about tonight, and I know that you people put a lot of time and effort into the budget. And, if you're waiting to see what happens with the first vote, if it passes or if it goes down, and maybe that's what you're going to wait for, whatever you do, it's you. I'm not going to be mad. A lot of you people are my friends on the outside of this room, so whatever you do, you do. I just wanted to express my opinion for whatever that's worth. And will you be having a meeting next Monday?
That's yet to be determined, John. We're going to see if there are items of business that the council has to take up, we will, but we'll decide that later on this week, probably.
And the other thing, Marilyn just reminded me, the town manager's fireside chats, and Mr. Lee thought I meant it as an insult, but it wasn't. It was really fireside chat. It was respectful, and it was really nice, and it was great. First meeting, we had 3 people. I think last meeting there was 10 people, and one of the people there was on a town commission. He told Robert Lee that he learned more in those 2 hours than he has at any other meeting ever. So it was good. A lot of different topics and issues, and I'm glad the town manager's doing it again, and maybe some more people will come out, because he really wants to convince everybody to vote for this budget. So he's doing a good job with that right now.
Okay, John.
So
tell all your friends and family to come by.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? Mr. Edmond?
Edmund, Joel Edmund, 63 Hollyberry Lane. No rail, no trail, and no thank you. I have an ex-wife and 2 daughters. Nothing scares me anymore except for the continual annual escalation of town, state, and federal taxes. I'm here tonight to adamantly oppose any trail or trails that do not adhere to the original Rails to Trails design concept. Also to try to encourage our town leaders to hold the line on increasing Plainville's town budget from increasing again. Governor Lamont has pledged to place the state on a debt diet and sharply reduce long-term borrowing, that there's not enough money for DOT to do the things they do. I say, isn't that something for our town of Plainville should be doing? A perfect example of this is our future contributions of taxpayers' revenue towards what some are calling rails to trails, but no rails, at 9 miles or more of linear park, exactly through the center of Plainville, in effect making a crossroads or cross trails, if you will. The active railroad bed is 3.05 miles, like 1/3 long, the gap from Farmington to Southington. Originally, outside planners, who apparently don't care about negatively impacting homeowners, businesses, and traffic, stated several different designs, of which almost doubled the distance. Then they conjured up a separate trail to Connecticut Fast Track in New Britain. Totally unnecessary. What's, in my opinion, what's to stop them from designing another one going to Bristol? Like the 2 almost empty buses that follow each other until midnight. It seems like our little 9 square mile town is getting smaller with each passing year. Then there is a conflict with the design of the trail slicing through Norton Park, utilizing the destruction and encroaching wetland ecology with the 20-foot wide construction zone from Town Line Road north. Also involved are the wetlands alongside of Scott Swamp and the construction of a conduit under Route 372 in the floodplain. Another conduit under Crooked Street is very problematic to me. I'm not, this last paragraph, I may not be the smartest person in this chambers, but I unmistakably have a lot of common sense. The rush to approve this gap trail by the town council, in my estimation, was not well thought out as to all the negative impacting reasons it should have been.
Can you sum up, Mr. Edmond, please?
Last sentence. It is very suspicious to me, and that was almost 1.5 years ago, after much opposition from townspeople. No rail, no trail, and no thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak to the council? Roberta?
Roberta Loria, 18 Perrin Road. For the benefit of Carol and the town council minutes this evening, I would like to say that I oppose any trails or alignment that will be on, next to, or have an impact on any neighborhood in Plainville, especially Perrin Road, where it will be inches from residents' backyards. And that includes our children's backyards. One thing I was a little concerned about, I guess, or maybe disappointed, is that there was not a number 7 item on the town manager report. And that's something I discussed at the last town council meeting. And that is, I'd like to know if there's been any further development from the Trail Design Committee that started on January 31st of this year. And if there's anything that can be shared to the residents here this evening.
I'm unaware of any further developments regarding that.
Has there been any new meetings? Is there anything that can be reported to us?
No, not to my
Okay.
knowledge.
Thank you. Mr. Edmond alluded to something regarding future taxes and costs of the trail. And I would just like to comment from a personal perspective that these aren't future expenses. These are expenses we're paying for today. On the early morning hours of March 31st, I woke up around 1:30 or so. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. And I realized that I hadn't gone to check. One of the last things I do every night is check the doors on my vehicles because we've had issues. Well, about 2 a.m., I went to my picture window and looked out. And usually I'm used to seeing bears, deer, coyotes, because I'm by the nature trail. Darndest thing, I saw a two-legged individual that had a hooded sweatshirt roaming around our neighborhood. This was at 2 a.m. on March 31st. He was I was on the street in front of my house. I have 2 vehicles parked out there. I stood at my picture window and hit the fob keys. That ignited the lights and it beeped the horns. I made it clear that I was watching him. I turned around and called the non-emergency number to the police department. And I said, you're going to think I'm crazy, but there's somebody in my front yard roaming around at 2 a.m. They had a police officer show up. He raced so far down, there was no way he would have been able to see anybody. By the time I put the phone down, this individual disappeared before the police could come. 15, 20 minutes later, I looked back out my street, and there was a car now that had turned around, was now facing toward Johnson Avenue, and somebody came running out of a yard into this car. Now, I blame you for that, because the reality is we didn't have these problems before you started this darn trail. We didn't have all these individuals. As I said, the biggest thing I had to worry about were coyotes, bears, deer, things like that. Now we have to be concerned about this stuff. So to tell people that we're not having to pay for this till down the road is an absolute lie. If there are no rails available, there should be no trails. Get it off people's backyards.
Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? Okay, we'll, Joanne, of course.
Joanne Edmond, 166 West Main Street. For the record, for Carol, I strongly oppose alignment C and any other alignment of the trail that negatively impacts Perron Road, Pierce Street, Broad Street, the back of Hemingway, into the park. It's absolute nonsense. We don't need it. And I think that the time has come when the council should decide that, this is a bad idea. I mean, Roberta is now fearful. I would be too if it was going past my house. I'd probably be out there with a shotgun. And you know what? People are going to have to do something because we're on the map. She's on the map. Pierce Street's on the map. It's sad. It's sad that this has come to this beautiful little town. I called it a sorry-ass town once. I meant sorry-ass about some of the things that are going on. This was once a beautiful town. Antique houses, historical houses, buildings that were not bastardized and converted and distorted. It was a beautiful town. We didn't have as I said before, the bump outs and all the nonsense that we have now. It's getting to be too crowded. We're getting to be a sanctuary town. It's reflecting in the schools. And speaking of the schools, I still didn't get an answer. I hope Mr. LePage will give me a call, try to explain all this tutor nonsense. I mean, kids can't even write. Which isn't their fault. They only have cursive in the 3rd grade. And I think that's absolutely deplorable that kids can't write. There's as I brought out at another town council meeting, there is not an expansion of patriotism in the schools. That's so sad. We were since the constitutional days, we were brought up on a Christ-like system of religion. And why doesn't that exist today in the schools? That's what's wrong with the kids. They're not getting enough religion. They're not getting enough patriotism. This is America, the greatest country in the world. And I cannot understand why there's such excuses. Since the Obama years, there's such an excuse, an apology for the schools. I mean,
Joanne,
for America.
Can you wrap up? Your time has exhausted.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on a roll.
I know, and that could go on, but your time has expired.
I'm
so
disgusted. I'm disgusted that the kids aren't getting, that maybe they're getting a good education, but there's a big lack of patriotism.
Okay, thank you.
You've got to change that. Because I'm going to be on this. I'm going to be on this. Trust me.
Okay, does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? Mr. Frangos?
Greatest country in the world. And it's downplayed. And the border's overrun with the Eagles.
I'm sorry.
You're going to catch it too.
Lou Frangos, 10
Mr.
Fairbanks
Frangos.
Street. I'm going to lock in. This is just general information I'm looking for. Have we heard, regarding taxes, have we heard anything how much we're going to be paying Hartford, that supplemental tax this year?
Are you talking about the teacher's retirement?
No. We have to fund Hartford to survive.
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
When we get hit with a supplemental tax to fund Hartford? Did I miss
No.
something here?
You might have heard about the teacher's retirement, which would be an additional expenditure to the town.
I was going to allude to the teachers. I was interested. They were talking about pensions.
Right, the
state-
teacher's
and we may
pension
be
cost
absorbing
is
that.
right. That's right.
Have we considered that in this year's taxes, or we just don't know what's going on yet?
We've actually incorporated it into the budget, which will be for
It's already been
next
done.
year.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing too I was interested in is the impact on redistricting schools, the impact on Plainville. Has the council looked at that, if it were to come to pass?
No, there's been a lot of thought and talking in Hartford, and that's a topic that's still being hotly debated, whether there's going to be a softening of that in regard to redistricting. I think they're trying to get schools to to coordinate certain activities. That redistricting has sort of changed a little bit when it was first offered up, but we don't know the answer to that yet. That's going to be the governor's, wherever that ends up at the end of the day.
These are just curiosity because I'm sorry, I guess I missed the boat somewhere along the line
There's
here.
a lot of stuff that's been thrown around.
Yes, indeed. Didn't we fund Hartford, every town and city in Plainville, in Connecticut, had to give money into Hartford to fund Hartford? Did I miss something here?
It's not every city, but it's built into it's built into the budget, the state budget, but not every city has had to come up with money for
The
that.
state budget committed to paying Hartford's debt off over a period of time. That didn't come down to the towns. That's the state.
Okay, my mistake. I'm
is
sorry.
paying that, so that didn't come down to the towns.
I'm sorry.
We didn't have to contribute to that. We may get less revenue from the state
Right.
as a result of that,
It
but we
may
didn't.
affect
We didn't
us.
pay for any of it.
All right, I misunderstood. I'm sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else wish to speak that has not done so? Anybody else? All right, thank you for your comments. I will close the public comment section. Moving on to, we have no old business to discuss this evening. On to our new business agenda items. Item number 1.
Madam Chair? Oh, sorry. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to approve and recommend the general government fiscal year 2020 budget, including capital projects, for $23,551,717, and the Board of Education fiscal year 2020 budget for $38,329,105 for a total expenditure of $61,880,822.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. Well, I'll just, generally speaking, this is, our budgets are growing every year. There's no denying that. And unfortunately, we cannot always count on the support from the state of Connecticut as we have had in the past. There are items in this budget right now that may not come to pass, such as the teacher's retirement requirement. What's happened over the past several years is that there are mandates that have come down from the state of Connecticut that affect both the town side of the budget and most dramatically the Board of Education side of the budget. There's all kinds of requirements that the Board of Education has to take care of, through which they have no choice. And that is part of an explanation of why some of the growth is about. However, I believe that the Board of Ed did a good job putting together their budget. I want to thank my council members, the town manager, Rob Buden, for the efforts that they put into putting this together. I personally would like to see less of an increase. I truly wish there was a way we could make that happen. But after we've looked at everything, we have actually done some creative thinking about this budget in terms of taking care of some expenditures in ways we haven't done before. So I do believe we looked under every rock and tried to squeeze every penny we could while continuing the services that we currently provide for our town. So we will see this. If it passes tonight and the council approves this budget, it will go out to a referendum vote on April 30th at the Firehouse from 6 a.m. until 8 p.m. I encourage anybody that is registered to vote or a property owner, please come by and make your voice heard. This is important. This is what runs our town. This is what keeps our schools going, and we need participation. I know that's a comment a lot of people are disappointed about in terms of the numbers of people that come out to vote, but it is our most important job that we do here, and I hope that people will take it seriously and that they will come out and vote, whatever their opinion is. So, having said that, may I make a motion to approve? Actually, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to vote on these separately or at one? They're two different pieces, so.
Altogether.
All right. Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 2.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Motion to establish a public hearing on Monday, May 6, 2019, at 7 o'clock in the Municipal Center to hear public comment regarding the 2019 Neighborhood Assistant Act proposals.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 3.
Madam Chair. Motion
Yes.
to approve and authorize the town manager to sign a letter of agreement with CROG and Certex regarding the fiber project.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do we have any
One more.
Yeah,
tax refunds?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Motion to approve tax refunds is listed on the addendum.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, item number 12, other discussions of interest. Mr. Lee, do you have anything else for us tonight?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you. We do not have an executive session, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.